Thank you so much for having this presentation. I consider it a great honor. I wanted to thank Mario Iribarren for his excellent translation and Andres Cristo for the wonderful introduction that he did for the book. I thought I'd talk about just the genesis of the book, what it's really about. I mean, here we are, supposedly the most intelligent life form, at least on this planet, and yet somehow we are the only species that has designed and actually built the means of our possible extermination. How did this come about? And in exploring that, I kept coming back again and again to American culture, because it is the United States of America and the culture of the United States that has created these super weapons that lead to the possibility of actually extinguishing ourselves as a species. And it also leads to America as the leader of a situation in the 21st century where we find ourselves in perpetual war with no apparent way out. The title of the book is War Stars, not Star Wars, but War Stars. It means a number of things. One, the ultimate weapon that we've created, thermonuclear bombs, fusion bombs, are actually small stars. They work just the way our sun works. So those are actual war stars that are deployed, ready to wipe us out if we make a mistake. It also, the title also refers to the stars of war in American culture. And I start off with Robert Fulton, who is really quite stellar in his role as a star, because Fulton in the 18th century decided that he could invent a super weapon that would have only defensive uses and would eliminate the greatest threat to world peace, which was the British men of war. And that once he built this super weapon and deployed it, it would lead to perpetual peace and prosperity for the entire planet. What the weapon was the submarine, and he did. He designed it and he built it, and it was out there deployed in combat. It didn't actually sink any ships, the first ones. So here is the first American conception of the ultimate weapon, the super weapon that would bring about global peace. And we look at the evolution of that weapon, and we get all the way to the present, the 21st century, where the submarine is now in the form of Trident-class submarines, which carry those war stars, those thermonuclear weapons. In fact, the Trident-class submarine carries 192 thermonuclear weapons, each one more than 8 times more powerful than the atomic bomb that incinerated Hiroshima or Nagasaki. We'll jump forward a century to the late 19th century, the 1880s, 90s, when a form of literature which had emerged first in England and the continent, that is future war fiction, took a special American turn. The American fictions of future wars saw the United States being invaded, and then saw the United States, usually a lone genius, creating an ultimate superweapon, sometimes actually atomic in form, which brings about global U.S. dominance, U.S. rule, and because the United States, being so enlightened, now rules the world, global peace coming about through superweapons. Toward the very end of the 19th century, in 1898, there was an American response to the H.G. Wells novel War of the Worlds called Edison's Conquest of Mars, which took this to another level. It took it to an interplanetary level, and has Thomas Edison designing a whole fleet of spaceships which goes to Mars and exterminates the entire population of Mars. This was serialized in a New York newspaper. The first issue, the first episode in the serial on the newspaper shared the front page with the news of the USS Maine departing for Havana. This is 1898. 10 years later, flash forward 10 years later, Jack London writes a story called The Unparalleled Invasion, in which the world threatened by the masses of the Chinese population is saved because a U.S. scientist designs bacteriological warfare, which is then implemented on China and exterminates the entire population of China. And this is supposed to be a blessing, which once again brings about a universal global reign of prosperity and peace. That story appears just 3 years before we have the first use of the airplane as an actual bomber attacking, in fact, the civilian population. Where was that? Libya. 1911. This year is exactly the centennial of that bombing. And that bombing developed, the British developed it in what they called control without occupation, bombing the civilian population of Baghdad in Iraq. And this developed into the fascist theory of bombing articulated by General Douay in Italy, fascist Air Force. In the United States, the main disciple of this fascist theory of bombing was Billy Mitchell, who really pushed toward creation of a strategic bomber and a strategic air force, which took a role in World War II, which has led to a planet that we now occupy with dire consequences. In the middle of World War II, here's another war star, Walt Disney. Disney creates an animated film called Victory Through Air Power. And think of this now in terms of that planetary genocide imagined in Edison's Conquest of Mars, or Jack London's the unparalleled invasion, the extermination of the entire Chinese people. The Walt Disney picture, this is 1943, shows a vast armada of U.S. strategic bombers blackening the sky, turning into an eagle. They transform into an eagle and entirely destroy the people and the island of Japan, wiping out the Japanese population entirely. This is the cultural groundwork for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And as I develop it at great length in the book, Harry Truman had read these 19th century visions of the ultimate superweapon, which bring about U.S. global domination and peace. And this profoundly influenced his decision to drop those atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In the post-World War II world, this theory now takes another form as the United States develops a strategic bombing force, tests new weapons, develops from the atomic bomb to the hydrogen bomb, the thermonuclear bomb. There's this wonderful picture of B-29. This is a 1946 picture up an atom with Rita Hayworth in her role as Gilda, right next to the name of the plane, which is Up an Atom. Another war star of war, Jimmy Stewart in the 1955 movie Strategic Air Command. Stewart, when he sees the first B-47, the pure jet bomber, which this icon of the late 20th century and early 21st century, Jimmy Stewart looks at the B-47 and says, "She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life." There was, this alienation of the erotic, of sex and love into the technology of war and death is a major feature of this culture. Ronald Reagan, another star of war, creating the basis for the switch in the title, Star Wars. And then finally, here we are in the 21st century, which is conceptualized in the neocon document under George W. Bush, the project for a new American century, which looks like almost a replay of these late 19th century fantasies of American global hegemony, superweapons achieving through that global rule by the United States a peaceful world. With all the fantasies that of America under attack by these powerful weapons and super weapons, when the attack finally comes, providing the opportunity that the planners for the new American century were hoping for, it comes not in the form of some advanced super weapon, but 19 guys armed with box cutters. Immediately after 9/11, the culture takes another turn as we now plunge into the so-called war on terror, a bizarre concept. Within 2 months, Rupert Murdoch's Fox system was airing the serial 24, which shows the way to protect the world from the terror is to use torture and other extreme means to stop the, quote, bad guys from destroying the world. Well, this is in a nutshell how we got from the 18th century to the 21st century, the so-called new American century, and the role of the superweapon. By the time we get to this, the imagined superweapons projected in George W. Bush's speech, which gets Congress to authorize the Iraq invasion, the imagined superweapons become the means to plunge us into this state of perpetual war. Thank you.